Hi everybody, today is March 8th, and for today's recording, I wanted to do a few things. I know some of you at home are using Windows computers, and in class and in our labs I tend to use the provided Mac computer, and that also includes things like Excel and Photoshop, which, you know, if you're using a home computer, can be expensive. In some cases you might get a BMCC discount, but what happens when you leave BMCC? And I contend that image editing tools like Gimp, found at gimp.org, gimp.org, is a fantastic alternative to Photoshop. In fact, I would prefer using it over Photoshop for most of the stuff I do in digital design. And then we're also going to look at something called OpenOffice Calc, which is just a spreadsheet tool in the vein of Excel. I also recommend Google Sheets, but just for the purpose of this demo, I want to give a couple options of things that we can use. But I just want to get started. I know we're starting to get revved up for our midterm proposals, which lead directly into our final projects. And I know some of you might be struggling with, what is the best way for me to organize? This is a lot of material. How can I organize my material? In most jobs that I've had in working with digital assets, designing web applications, designing phone applications, designing games, designing software, whether I'm working as a single unit or with a team, I'm almost always using spreadsheets, and I'm not calculating numbers. I'm not doing anything sort of mathematical with this. This is merely an organizational tool that more and more jobs or occupations in the in industries where you'll be using some of the tools that we talked about in this class, they're going to do something probably similar to what I'm doing, and it's just a good habit to keep yourself organized. So I'm going to just get started and not waste too much of your time here. First place I'm going to go, obviously I'm going to open up Atom. I created a new folder called lab-3-8. Again, every time you're working on a new homework assignment, or doing a new sort of practice website, or a collection of practice CSS style sheets, or trying to integrate Bootstrap, I recommend every single time creating a new folder, starting from scratch. And that's just going to get your mind going, and get you sort of give you some sense memory. So when you're doing this stuff, the boring, monotonous stuff gets quick and simple, and you don't even have to think about it. And then you can start thinking about the fun, creative stuff, right? So we've got our folder here. I've got a little ignore file in here. Don't pay any attention to that. I've got, this is eventually going to be our HTML file. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up Chrome. I've already got our MMP200 dashboard opened up. And since I do, I'm going to have a little aside here. I see 8 of you have forked the repo. That's bad. I mean, it's not bad that you want to fork it. You should start instead. That makes me look good. And if I see, your name next to, like, this person started your repository, I might be giving you a more favorable grade. I'm just saying. It would also prove that you're watching these lab screen recordings, which I have a feeling maybe, not all of you are. So if you star this, I'll give you a bonus point, not out of vanity's, sake, a little out of vanity's, for vanity's sake, a little. But mostly because I'm worried about all of you who are forking this, and also I'm worried some of you aren't watching these screen recordings. Each time you fork this, if you go back to the forked repository that you just made, none of the updates that I'm making on a weekly basis to our course repo here on GitHub are going to update there. And so you're going to keep going, hey, I don't have any homework. I don't have a midterm. I don't have anything. And you're going to fail the class, and you're going to shake your finger at me in GitHub, and it's not our fault. It's not our fault. So that's, you know, that's just, I'm throwing that out here. Now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to come over here. I'm always going to go back to that first lab, you know, because that's the cleanest and easiest thing to start with. I haven't cluttered up my folder with a bunch of crazy stuff yet. This is just our Hello World example. I recommend you all do the same thing. And I know that you all that are diligent enough to be watching these screencasts are probably, you know, have breezed through this portion, but just bear with me. I always go into raw. Remember, we've had some weird issues saving all of this stuff. I can see that this is the bootstrap. I can see it's CSS, so I'm going to save that as. I'm here in the folder. I know it's the right folder because we see this ignore file that I put in here, lab 3.8. That's what I'm naming this, and we're going to call this bootstrap.css. Make sure save as type is cascading style sheet document. Great. Save that. Go back. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the bootstrap.js. Go into the raw file. I'm right clicking. You can go up if you're on a Mac, I'm shooting up to File, Save As. And this is the bootstrap.js, and I'm making sure this is saved as file type JavaScript file. Save that. I'm going to go back. And now I'm going to come, I don't need the hello world.css, that's just that example additional CSS I had. Why not just go ahead and take this hello world example that we made in class to save some time, and we can build on top of that. So again, I went into raw, I'm saving this as hello world.html. I'm making sure it's saved as type HTML. You could also go to all files as long as you are declaring that this is a .html file. If I were to do this and saved it, don't do that. Don't save when it says hello world.nothing and says save as type all files. This will ruin your file and you'll have to go through this process again. Always declare. And you can leave it all files here, or I recommend, if the option is available, to click, you know, be as specific as possible. So, hello world, I'm going to rename it. No, we'll just name it. That's fine. Not gonna confuse you more than I already have, right? I went back, and now the last thing we need, the scary, as always, jQuery file that causes us so much pain. But I'm literally doing the same thing. But again, I'm typing .js here, and I'm going to declare that as a JavaScript file, and I'm going to save it, and I'm going to go back, and yeah, I'm going to, for now, go over here, and now I'm just going to check and make sure everything looks like it downloaded right, and it all looks pretty good to me. And now we've got sort of this drudgery that we're typing in everything that we do to make sure. Well, I'm getting rid of this. I didn't download the hello world.css. I don't think this would break your file if you left that there, but I would notice that if this was like, you know, a final or something and you're making calls to a style sheet that isn't included in your folder, that would look like, you know, you didn't know how to go in and clean up your work a little bit. I might take a point off, probably I wouldn't, but you know, let's get rid of it. And then, you know, I'm not going to worry really much about any of the Bootstrap stuff for today's lab, because I want to, you know, I want to focus on the important stuff. And you know, before this is all said and done, so now, you know, I'll just write sort of a paragraph tag and type test and close that tag out and file, save, and then come back over here and let's see. Give me one moment here. So now you can see this is my file manager. You'd be looking in Finder if you were on a Mac computer. And I'm just going to take this, I'm going to create a new tab here. And I'm going to take this hello world and just drop it here. And now we see the word test, so we know it's working. We also know, because this is again, this is what's called a sans serif font, meaning there's no sort of little lines or things. It is a sans serif font, and we all know by default, if we didn't have some kind of Bootstrap CSS or some kind of other CSS style sheet being called here, this would by default be a serif font. So that's good. That's good. We've got it started, so I can minimize this for now. Now, now that we've laid some groundwork here, let's. I'm just going to make a note that we're about 11 minutes and 17 seconds in. We start using spreadsheets. This is just maybe make things easier when you're going back and sort of looking through this stuff. So those of you that have mastered the creating a file folder and getting the CSS and HTML going, don't have to look at that every time. So now I am opening OpenOffice Calc. Now, if you just go onto Google, type in OpenOffice Calc, the first thing that'll come up is the OpenOffice Calc download page. You click on that, it'll most likely know exactly what kind of system you're on. Give you that as a download offering right at the top. You just download it, you go through the little process, it's going to make you restart your computer. I downloaded it today. Again, I usually use Google Sheets, and for everything I'm going to be doing with this, you don't need something fancy. If you would rather use Google Sheets, great. I just don't really want to screen record with all of my Google info open. Anderson's top secret files. Nobody needs to see those but me. That's dumb. Anyway, here we go. So what I've done is when you open it up, you'll have 3 tabs down here that say Sheet 1, Sheet 2, Sheet 3. All I did was double-click those and named these. The first one I named Bugs and Revisions. This is a very common spreadsheet title to see if you're working in digital media or software in general, obviously. Features, I've got a Features tab, and I've got a Research tab. And I think all 3 of these tabs will be very useful for anyone in this course that are, that's trying to get an A and really is looking to figure out how best to organize their work when trying to create a digital deliverable as our final project in this course is, and even in to a lesser extent is our midterm proposal. That is sort of our foundation when working up to the final project. So, what I might do is the first thing I might do is maybe I'll move features over, so you can kind of drag these around. Research might actually be the first thing that you want, because the first thing you want to do, and I like to give sort of I hit Control B and bold these, because these are sort of my headers, and I like to give it a little paint bucket fill. So maybe I tend to use like yellow or orange for this. You could use blue. You could use magenta if you're one of those that just loves the color magenta, and why shouldn't you be? I'm being flippant. I apologize. So let's say, for instance, I'm creating, I like my cartoons. So let's say we're creating Anderson's. My big idea for my final project is I'm going to create Anderson's cartoon database. Anderson's Cartoon Encyclopedia. Who knows? So what I want to do is I want to start researching, things that deal with what I want to build. So maybe the first thing I want to look at is Cartoon Network's website. Maybe I want to look at the Pixar website. I know they were the sort of the founders of computer animation. So Pixar Studios website, and maybe I want to also maybe want to look at a book by I know Creativity Incorporated. I know that is the name of a book by the I think now president of Disney, not Bob Iger, but that's the CEO of Disney, but the president of Disney Animation Studio, which is Ed Catmull. So he wrote Creativity Incorporated. These are just things I know off the top of my head. You might need to do some Google searches before, but spitballing is always like a good way to go. At first, now I'm thinking about what are some things that I like the look of them, like maybe what's another data? IMDb. That is a database site that people look at. Maybe I want I don't know. 4 is good to start, right? So we can get moving. Do this. The other thing I like to do with all this stuff is I like to wrap. Is this wrapping? No. Okay. See, I'm always on Google Sheets, so now I'm wasting your time here. Format. So see, we're not all. I don't know why wrap isn't just like a super. I mean, I'm sure it's simple here, but I don't know. I don't ever use this. I always use Google Sheets, and all I have to do is hit a button and hit wrap, and it wraps for me. That just means that instead of, if you look at me typing like this, right, and then I hit enter, it just like goes into everything else. Whereas if I had wrapping on, so now we'll just, I'm going to heed my own advice here and do wrapping and open calc. How do I wrap a, see, professors, they're just like you. Click the selected area and go to format cells. So right click, select everything, here we go, format cells, and then wrap text automatically. This I find should just be, so now we should, and now you see that we have wrapping, so that's good, because especially when we get over here to the notes category, even if we sort of increase the size, we're still going to want that wrapping if we have more than, so this would be a, so we want to tag these as, I'll tag this as website, I'll tag this as website, I'll tag this as book, and I'll tag this as database. There's just some tags I've given. You think about tags the same way you would think of a social media tag. Like if you're having a good day, you might write hashtag blessed, or if you're having a bad day, you might put hashtag FML, right? And I don't have to tell you what that means. But that's just an example of, I mean, think about the concept in the same way here. You just want something quick and short and immediate that tells you what it is that you are, what type of research item that you're dealing with. Then you're going to want to put a link here, so I'm sure the website here is cartoonnetwork.com, and even though that's wrapping, it's kind of rough if I don't pull it over a little. I think I just clicked that link. So I'm going to do the same thing here. And here I would probably want to look up the publishing company, so I don't know that yet. Look up on Google, and then I know this is, and then, you know, my initial notes, they don't have to be anything crazy, would just be like, look at how they set up their landing page, for instance, right? Or Pixar, is there any video on the site? How do they use video? And then IMDb, what information is offered on each individual movie title? Okay. Now, you know, these are just, this is how I might go about, you know, researching things for my final project. This also, you know, and then, oh, another tag you might use is citation. Cited. Let's call it cited. So maybe in your, you know, there's a 2,000 word requirement for your midterm proposal. That's approximately 350 words per HTML page. Again, just look at the look at our repo and look at our look at the grading rubric that I've offered you there. And then maybe if you find something on one of these sites that you're researching that, hey, this would be great to quote from, this is where I really found a lot, maybe I've found an image that I want to use to make a point. So then I already know that, hey, just click this link, I want to use this link as a citation. So great. Let's go on to features. So let's see, I want to write, my feature is I want to create, well no, feature is, I'm going to call it a, what we might call a Jumbotron image. Or let's make it even simpler than that. Then just let's say a large logo image. So, you know, maybe I want to also, I'm also going to have to, you know, format cells, wrap text automatically, okay. Large logo image. Maybe I want to use, we gotta have a bootstrap navbar, and you know, maybe 5 individual HTML pages. You know, here I want to use Gimp to create a large logo image. Maybe we want it to be 1040 pixels by 512 pixels. You know, why not? Just for the sake. Whatever. We know. Look at Bootstrap. Look at getbootstrap.com docs for customization options. Again, I'm just writing notes that I might take while I'm trying to get my stuff together and get ready to really like start moving full steam ahead on a digital project. You know, I start organizing before really I even start the project, other than the word test, right? 5 individual HTML pages. You know, I might want to list what they are, so I might go back into, say, our MMP MMP200 thing and go into midterm proposal and final project. Come in here, and these are what all the pages are supposed to be. So I can just come in here, copy that, paste it. So I'll delete everything except the main points. Resource, let's see. Goals and challenges. Works cited. So let's count those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So see, I'm already learning new things. 7 individual web pages. Actually, let's do 8, because we also have to have the landing page, right? Or the home page, the index, whatever you want to call it. So I'll throw some kind of coloring up here, bold that. Now we've got research, features, bugs and revisions. We don't have any bugs and revisions yet, but I've got here, you know, issue, whatever the issue is. Maybe we've got a broken image, whether it's addressed or not. So, you know, I would usually actually just color this red or green. So if it's not addressed, I would just have red, and then if it is addressed, I hit green, and then notes over here, right? So we'll just leave that as is, and yeah, now we can just sort of get rid of our not get rid of it. We don't need, like, I'll minimize this for a while, and now I'll get cracking on maybe I want that large image here. So let me look at my features page. Let's see, the first thing I've got here, 1040 by 512. Maybe I did some research and found that Cartoon Network had a big 1040 by, or actually I want this to be 1024. Maybe they had a 1024 pixels by 512 pixel image. Or maybe we read on a site like most home pages use an image of this size. Whatever reason, we already documented the size we want, and that's going to help us when we start up Gimp. So I'm going to load Gimp here. I've already got it open. The first thing I recommend you do is come up here to Windows, because there's a good chance all of your sort of lots of, you know, these little modules like this one here on the screen, they're probably not all sucked into one window. They're probably all over the place, and this can be confusing. Come up to Windows and go to single window mode. So you have that checked, and that's going to save you a lot of heartache and headache and all that good stuff. So I'm going to open File, New. A box like this should come up, and I want 1024 as my width and 512 as my height. If you want to add some more advanced options, I like to do it with transparency myself. That way, you know, if I want to do something a little crazier, I can make it a little more interesting. And I'll hit OK. And now this gray backdrop thing, actually let's down to, right now it's at 100%. I like to do at this size, probably look at about 75%. That way, at least on this particular monitor, I get the whole, you know, canvas on the screen. So yeah, now there we go. Now the first thing I'm going to want to do is we see over here we've got the background. I want to create some new layers. Layers allow us to manipulate different parts of the photo without maybe having to go back and change something that we wanted. So I'll do a quick example of how one might use layers. I'm just going to click this button here, and again, if you hover over any of these icons and just let your mouse sit, it's gonna tell you what they do. So you don't have to get too confused. But I'm going to come down here, and if I hover over that, you can see it says create a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and create one. I clicked that. This box came up. Usually I don't even think about what this says. I just hit the new layer and OK. And maybe I'll name this layer head A, and maybe I'll create another one. Okay, and call it head B, and maybe I'll create yet another one and call this one body, right? So now I'm just going to draw a little picture, and for the sake of time I will warn you it will not be very attractive, I'm sure. I'll do something more interesting after I give you this demonstration. So I'll click on this head A layer, and I'm going to create a happy head. And now maybe for now I'm going to go over here to head B. Now I'm going to see this is an eyeball is what that's supposed to be. So I want to hide this head for now and put a new head B, and we'll make this head little Mr. Sad Guy. Give him a worse nose. And now I want to go to body. And, you know, notice that body is what is selected here. Even though you can still see head B here, I can hide it and bring it back. But I've got body highlighted. And I'll draw a body on this person. Again, please don't judge these art skills. He's waving at you, believe it or not. I'll make sure you can see that he is indeed wearing clothes. There's his very fancy shirt, and his pants are actually. No, we'll give him some boots here. He wears cowboy boots. I don't know why. So now I can. Now, if I had cowboy boots like these, I'd be happy. So I'm going to get rid of head B and show head A. Oh, wow, now he looks happy. But maybe I want him to be sad. But maybe I want, you know, there to be a version of both of these, you know. Who knows? But that's just an example of how you might use layers. So I'm just going to right click here, and I'm going to delete this layer. I'm going to delete this layer, and I'm going to delete this layer. I'm going to create. Now I'm going to create something that's actually maybe useful for my site. Now, sometimes I want a logo image, and yes, I can go in and maybe I can go explore Google Fonts, and I can find something that has sort of open permissions that I'm allowed to use on my site. Then I can go through some documentation and figure out how exactly I would embed a Google font into my website, etc., etc., etc. Or because I'm still in sort of the prototype phase, because I'm still trying to see how exactly do I want to design this site, I might do something quite different. So maybe I'm going to create a new layer. Create a new layer here, a couple new layers, and the first thing I want to do is I want to create this is called the rectangle select tool, but this allows me to create rectangles. But what I can do that's kind of fun that I think I might do is I can click this rounded corners here. Again, if you're using Photoshop, you can do most of this stuff. It's pretty similar. We'll look at that in class. But you know, it might there might be some slightly different options when it comes to all this customization stuff. And of course we'll get this in class, but I like to give it like maybe a rounded corner. So maybe, you know, drag this, and give it sort of that comic book panel look. So maybe I'll come and find, I clicked on this. This brings open my color options. Now I can go here along the rainbow, and I can look. And the other cool thing is you see HTML notation. If you're ever wanting to, you know, maybe find an exact color of blue or something for your like main header on your website, you can open up Gimp, go to change foreground color, find the exact color you want, and then you can just throw in this hex code on your CSS instead of like writing orange or red, which are some small options. You have literally every option of color you can think of if you understand how to use hex codes. So that's good. I've got a little yellow color right here because I want to do like kind of a comic booky thing. I'll put this on one layer, and here's another little trick. I'm going to go to right click, select. Again, you don't have to learn all these like fancy little tricks. There's probably a zillion YouTube tutorials out there on fun things you can do in Gimp, and you know, I recommend just playing around and having fun. But I'm going to go to select, and I'm going to grow, and it asks me how big I want to grow the selection by. I'm going to hit 4, and now I'm going to use this second layer I've created, and I'm going to color it in black. But now I'm going to lower that below this layer. Think of this like a sandwich, and whatever's on and you're looking at the sandwich from up above. And whatever you've placed on the sandwich at the very top is, when you look down at that sandwich, what you can see. So whatever is on the very topmost layer is going to be, you know, the most front-facing asset in our Gimp pipeline here, our pipeline of layers. So now we've created sort of this illusion of a nice, bold, black border here, which I like. I'm going to create another layer. So maybe I want to try maybe a different color yellow. Maybe I want it to be a little less orange and a little more sunshine yellow, just to see what that would look like. So maybe I'll just take this layer, duplicate it, and fill that in. So now I can click it on and off, and I can see, okay, this is what it looked like in this color yellow. I think I like the more orange color. Come in here, I'll select the black, and now I'll call this, we're going to call it what, Anderson's Cartoon Encyclopedia or Database or whatever. We'll call it Anderson's Cartoon type database, and I'll make the font bigger. Still not as big as I want it to be. Maybe 77, maybe 125. It's maybe too big, so maybe 100. Good enough, right? And I don't want this font, so I'm going to find one. I know I have one I specially downloaded. Again, you know, any of you are maybe making your own comic books, definitely recommend Universal Fruitcake. But now it's definitely too big, so we'll go down to 80. Hopefully this will work. Might look better centered, maybe, right? Center it. Let me spread it out a little bit and take up some more real estate here. That's fun. It's kind of Charlie Brown looking, right? I like that. So now we have this big logo. Again, I could do something more sort of this. I look at this as a prototype. You know, later on I might build a big jumbotron in Bootstrap, and then I might integrate the font using something else, so that people, you know, that are only able to, you know, there are reasons why you wouldn't just want to maybe put a logo like this on your website and want to do something a little bit more dev heavy, for lack of a better word. But again, we're in the prototyping phase, and even up to your final project, you'll probably still be in a prototyping phase. Though of course I invite you to push on forward and create something that you want to share with the world. But now we've got this. We've played with layers a little bit. Now I'm going to do two things. I'm going to file save as, and I'm going to save. I'm going to go to file save as. And I'm going to name this. You know, I'll just name it. No, I'll name it logo1.xcf. XCF files are specifically for Gimp. You would probably be saving this as a PSD file if you were in Photoshop. Now, this is not the file that I'm going to integrate into my website. This is going to be the file that I come back to. So if, let's say, I decide I want to change those layers around, I can do that. Whereas we're going to export this as a PNG file after we save this. Now I'm going to go to File, Export As, and now I'm still in the same directory that we want to be in, and now I'm just going to save this as logo1.png, and I'll be good and declare it exactly, and we'll export that. So now I can minimize this, and now I can say, you know, notes, I'm back in my spreadsheets, and I'm just going to say created initial logo image, and then I might date that right, like today is 3/8. Just so I can keep up with like what I've been working on most recently. You know, you could even put a date over here, you know, and put different dates for each day you're working on stuff. That way, you know, you can do it in a linear way, or we can just say created logo image 3/8/18. Great, so now that's there. We've logged it. Now I can come back over here. Oh, I should have logged when we started working in Gimp. Whatever, it's fine. So now if you look over here in our folder, a great thing again about using something like Atom or Sublime as your text editor, you can see that our logo images were saved to the directory. And so now I can just sort of do img src equals quotations logo-1.png. I'll put it within the span of a paragraph. Come here to File, Save. So now let's see if we go back to our little Hello World page that once said test. Will it be here? Yes, there it is in all its glory. Yeah, it looks nice. So now we have you know, we have a big logo image. Just to prove we're not just looking at an image, maybe we here. You know, type in some lorem ipsum blah 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 blah. File, save, open Chrome back up, reload, and we see we have this stuff going on here. And so it did work. Great. Now let's say I didn't do this. Let's say I found a bug, right? Now maybe I typed in logo1.xcf. Oh, that's the Gimp file. I wonder what'll happen if I do that. Oh, it's broken. So let's say you didn't remember that .xcf is specifically just for opening files in Gimp and that you have to export it as a PNG, JPG, GIF, etc. to actually get it to load on your screen. You forgot that, you don't know it. So now you have this bug that you need to squash. So I'm going to come right back into here, and I'm going to come over here to my bugs and revisions, and I'm going to say, make sure format cells, wrap text automatically. I don't know if I want to do that. And you know, I make these a bit bigger. So my issue is logo image not working. And this has not been addressed, so I'm going to put red here. And my notes are going to be created image and Gimp. Good. Pasted. Included on index.html page. And then I might even create another area over here called markup, and then you know, maybe type copy that and maybe paste that here. Now, let me tell you why this is especially good to do. Some of you in here have, you know, done a lot with websites, or already looking into how you can get into sort of database design, or looking at an object-oriented programming language used for MVC architectures like Ruby on Rails or Python and Django, and all kind of fun stuff like that. But some of us in here, you know, we had one course on HTML and CSS, and maybe we didn't do amazing in that, and now we're in this course, and we're very worried about the final proposal. This is your solution. You know, you could do this you know, this is not hard to create documentation like this. So let's say you turn in for your final a non-working website. You know, the images aren't working, the links aren't working, something is majorly wrong. But let's say you hand me you know, I'm gonna save this. This is all one document, all three of these tabbed things. I can come up here to File, Save As, and come down here. I'm gonna find my folder again. So find my folder here. It's a .ods. Excel will be like, what, XCL or something. You could save your sheets on Google Sheets by going to File, Save As, and you could save it as an ODS document or an XCL document or whatever, and you could include this on your flash drive that you give to me. So we'll call this Final Project Spreadsheets. Save, and you could turn that in. So let's say I'm grading your paper and going, or grading your final project and going, oh my gosh, everything is broken. I can't see anything. I see that they've included some screenshots, they've included some things, but it's not working at all. They're about to get a very low, wait a second, here's a spreadsheet. And let's say on your bugs and revisions document you have 64 things. And on your features document you have, you know, 33 things. And on your research doc you have a startling 81 things, right? Like different things that you've done to look at and whatnot. I go, wow, I must have messed up a little bit here, or there was one thing that this person wasn't getting, because I can see that they worked their tail off trying to get this into me. People work their tails off, and I see visual proof of it, I start to become a way easier grader. Now, if you don't have something like this, and all I have to read is, say, your text, let's say none of your images are working, so I'm looking at that as though they aren't even there. None of your links are working, so all I have to go on is your writing. I'm going to grade it like an English teacher. And some of you, English might not be your first language, and you're going to have a really low grade, but if you have something like, the beautiful spreadsheet filled out with crystal clear details of everything that you've been working on, even if it's like a little messy and the English isn't good, but there are links and there are tags and there are notes and there are titles and there are bugs and there are, when bugs were fixed or what bugs are still remaining. Man, I will grade you like an English teacher, but maybe like an elementary school English teacher, because I like to give good grades to people that work hard. That's my thing. So that's it for today's little lesson. I hope it was fun, edifying, at least maybe helpful. And I'll see you in class.